Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most visually baffling and, honestly, one of the most expensive urban mysteries of our entire generation. We're looking at an extraordinary national experiment that basically involves building tomorrow's cities long before tomorrow's population has even packed their bags. So picture this. Imagine walking down perfectly paved streets. You're looking up at these massive, towering skyscrapers. Maybe you're standing in the middle of a vast, immaculate shopping mall or driving down a huge multi-lane highway. But there's a catch. You're doing all of this in near total silence. It begs the question, right? Why on earth would any country deliberately spend vast amounts of resources building entire cities before the people even arrive? And it's absolutely crucial to wrap our heads around the sheer scale here. I mean, we are not talking about abandoned, rusting places decaying after some economic collapse. Not at all. These are brand new, pristine, multi-billion-dollar mega projects that, in some cases, currently sit almost completely empty. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars poured into concrete, steel, and glass. But here's the thing. These cities definitely weren't constructed by mistake. To understand exactly why they exist, we really have to rewind the clock. Section 1. The urbanization engine, the fastest urban transformation in history. Okay, so back following the critical economic reforms of 1978, this absolute tidal wave of industrialization was unleashed. Fast forward to the 1990s, and an unprecedented manufacturing boom had created a rapidly growing middle class and entirely new industries. By the time we head into the 2000s, this massive economic explosion had triggered a profound demographic shift that essentially rewrote the entire landscape of the country. Literally hundreds of millions of people migrated from rural agricultural areas straight into urban centers. Just let that number sink in for a second. Hundreds of millions. This wasn't just a trend. Actually, it was a mass mobilization that basically forced rapid urbanization to become the ultimate national strategy. The government was suddenly looking at how to house, employ, and provide services for an influx of citizens that's larger than the entire populations of most countries. Section 2. The financial blueprint. Building cities before people? So, how do you even fund a massive influx like that? Well, local governments utilized a very reliable, specific playbook. First, they borrowed heavily against the value of rural land. Then they took those funds and built state-of-the-art infrastructure. Think roads, power grids, subways, way early on. Doing that dramatically spiked the value of the land, which then allowed them to sell off parcels to private developers at a massive premium. The whole shebang allowed them to hit their really aggressive GDP growth targets in the process. This strategy is formally known as infrastructure-first development. It's totally different from the West, where you wait for people to arrive and then sort of awkwardly try to retrofit a city with roads and sewers. Instead, these municipalities intentionally built out entire districts years before the actual population demand materialized. They were quite literally building for the future, making a huge bet that if they built the infrastructure first, the industries and the people would just inevitably follow. Section 3. The reality of the ghost cities. Successes, struggles, and the truth. But when you compare different mega projects side by side, it reveals some wildly varying outcomes. Take Ordos Kangbashi. It kind of became the global poster child for the whole ghost city phenomenon, struggling for years with really high vacancies and painfully slow initial population growth. But then, on the flip side, look at Zhengdong New District. It started with the exact same empty streets and skeptical headlines, but it eventually filled up. It attracted businesses, residents, and now thrives as a major bustling urban center. It's a real tale of two cities, proving that timing, location, and economic policy totally dictate the final outcome. And we're actually seeing this ambitious strategy continuing right now with the Sheng'an New area. This is a massive, ongoing, multi-billion-dollar project completely driven by top-down government planning. It's designed from scratch to be a brand new urban center with very long-term population goals. Basically, Sheng'an represents a modern, incredibly high-stakes test to see whether this infrastructure-first planning model can still succeed in today's economic climate. Section 4. Inside the property boom. Speculation, debt, and the giants. As all of this was happening, housing investment absolutely skyrocketed. It got to the point where real estate, along with its related sectors like construction and materials, accounted for roughly 25% of the nation's entire GDP. For millions of citizens, buying a second or even a third empty apartment became a guaranteed wealth-building strategy. They viewed property as this airtight investment for the future rather than, just a place to live. Naturally, this created a really intense economic boom. We saw completely unprecedented housing demand and rampant apartment speculation. This fueled the hyper-expansion of huge developer giants like Evergrande and Country Garden, who were just borrowing heavily to build as fast as humanly possible. But as they say, trees don't grow to the sky. All of this massive leverage ultimately led to a severe market slowdown and a sweeping debt crisis once borrowing limits were finally tightened. Because of this, we witnessed massive structural government interventions that were designed to stabilize the market and prevent a broader financial contagion. The urbanization engine had officially hit a major speed bump. Section 5, the future outlook. Demographics and shifting trends. Now, when we zoom out and examine the latest demographic data, a pretty stark new reality emerges. The population is aging rapidly, and at the same time, birth rates are sharply declining. This demographic contraction is crashing head-on into a massive oversupply of housing inventory that was left over from those wild boom years. Add to that the fact that overall economic growth is slowing down from its historical highs, and it's clear the fundamental math of the country's population is changing. This creates a really massive imbalance. You have this towering existing housing inventory colliding directly with declining projected demographic demand. The raw data starkly illustrates that the housing demand of the future is simply not going to match the explosive, infrastructure-heavy decades of the past. To put it simply, there are now more apartments than there are young families looking to fill them. So what happens next? Well, the strategy is rapidly evolving to adapt to this new reality. We are definitely seeing a distinct, optimistic pivot away from just pouring new concrete and a move toward integrating advanced technology. The focus right now is shifting heavily to smart cities and AI-driven city management to make existing urban areas highly efficient. Planners are zeroing in on urban redevelopment, creatively repurposing the immense infrastructure that's already out there, while the government is carefully adjusting its economic policies to rely a lot less on land sales and much more on sustainable, high-tech growth. Ultimately, these empty cities are a lot more than just concrete shells. They are the physical, real-world evidence of an extraordinary national experiment to literally reshape an entire society and economy right before our very eyes. It's a breathtakingly ambitious attempt to engineer the future. The world is changing, and now you understand the complex financial, demographic, and political mechanics explaining why. As this fascinating story continues to unfold, we're really left with one final provocative question. Will history remember this unprecedented, multi-billion-dollar undertaking as brilliant, visionary planning for tomorrow, or as a remarkably costly overbuilding of today? Thanks so much for joining this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep looking closely at the world around you.
Thanks for watching World Decoded. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, and stay curious.